Listen, the forest is waking up. Morning mist curls between ancient cedar trees in Hokkaido. The smell of damp earth and pine needles. You can hear children's voices carried on the breeze, soft at first, then growing clearer as they gather for their daily forest kindergarten. A 6-year-old's feet crunch on fallen leaves as she runs to the weather station. It's a simple thing, made of bamboo and twine, but it's theirs. The children built it themselves. She stops, reaching up to touch the wooden signs they carved with their teacher. Grandmother Tanaka sits on a smooth, worn log nearby. Her hands move slowly, carefully, weaving bamboo into the water collectors. The children circle around her like moths drawn to a flame. She tells them stories of her own childhood in these woods, of learning these same skills from her grandmother when times were hard after the war. One of the children spots something, wood pigeons nesting in the branches above. Without being told, every child falls quiet. They've learnt to read the signs of the forest, to move through it like they belong. Last night's storm left them a gift, a fallen branch, thick as a child's waist. You can see the excitement in their eyes as they gather round. The older children take charge, guiding the little ones. They're not just building a shelter, they're building trust, confidence, community. The laughter echoes through the cedar grove. It mingles with the rustling leaves and bird calls, becoming part of the forest's voice. This is where the old ways live on. This is where children learn the most important lesson of all, that they are part of something larger than themselves, something as ancient and endless as the forest itself. Amidst the Arctic snowdrift, whispers of 1,000-year-old stories can be heard. Here, on the edge of Norway's tundra, the Sami elder's footsteps break fresh snow. Behind him, young people follow, their brightly coloured gakti standing out against the white landscape like scattered wildflowers. The soft beeping of GPS signals mingles with the jingle of traditional silver buttons. Watch how the elder stops, kneels, reads the snow like a book. His fingers trace marks only visible to experienced eyes. The young people gather close, phones forgotten in mittened hands. This is knowledge no satellite can capture. The way snow falls differently around a resting reindeer, how the wind reshapes drifts, how to read the stories written in tracks and broken twigs. He tells them of old migration routes, paths their ancestors followed beneath the same stars. A young woman marks the coordinates on her phone, mapping ancient wisdom onto digital grids. The past and future dance together here, like northern lights across the winter sky. Somewhere ahead, the reindeer herd moves through deep snow. The group follows, like their ancestors would have done. A young girl practices with a suapunki, a type of lasso. The movement's as natural as breathing. She's been learning since she could walk, each throw a lesson in responsibility. Wearing a combination of modern Gore-Tex beneath traditional wool, she marks her family's reindeer calves, distinguishing them from the neighbours' herds. Solar-powered trackers blink steadily from reindeer collars, yet the most important tools are still the same: keen eyes, patient feet, and the stories shared between young and old. Here, at the National Reindeer School, this is how knowledge survives. Not preserved in amber, but alive, growing, changing like the tundra itself. It seems, in every step across this harsh landscape, tomorrow's traditions are taking root. The highland mist rolls back like curtain drawn by unseen hands. A woman's voice rises in Gaelic song, old words climbing into the silver-draped horizon. The melody is ancient, a shealing song, hymned for centuries while hands worked on wool and tended cattle in these summer pastures. Stone walls trace lines across heather-clad hills. They tell stories of generations who've walked these paths, who've read meaning in every moss-covered rock. A crofter kneels beside a centuries-old cairn, teaching young hands how to repair its weather-worn face without disturbing its heart. An elder explains how to hear the difference between a contented flock and one that's found trouble. The young people listen, their modern boots sinking into the same peat that holds their ancestors' footprints. The morning air carries the sharp scent of heather and the balsamic breath of bog myrtle. Each plant has its purpose: medicine, dye, food for the bees that make the famous Highland honey. This knowledge flows like the burns that carve these hills, passed down in song and story. Here, every stone tells a tale, every path leads back through time. As the mist clears, revealing the great sweep of moorland, the old songs echo across the glens. Hello, and welcome to Where There's a Wilderness, the podcast best listened to around a campfire. I'm your digital trail guide, Robbo. Today I want to turn our attention to the beauty of outdoor education in fostering community engagement and social responsibility. What you just heard were a few examples of how communities across different cultures all share a common need for connection. And I think that's such a stunning thing. Personally, I'd love to visit each of these communities and experience them firsthand. What similarities and differences could you spot between the stories? Well, a similarity that I noticed was the deep connection to nature that seems to run through all of them. As for the differences, the geographical locations of these communities stand out. The unique landscapes they inhabit shape the lessons that they learn and, in turn, influence the cultural practices that emerge. So let's dive into the research and dissect the influence outdoor education has on developing community. The research I want to draw your attention to today comes from Beams and Atencio, because I find their 2008 paper fascinating. Outdoor education isn't just about learning survival skills or plant identification. There's something that researchers call social capital. That's an academic way for saying the connections and relationships that make communities thrive. Think about it like this. If you're out on a trail with a group, you're not just walking together, you're sharing experiences, building trust and creating bonds. However, the best outdoor education programs don't just create tight-knit groups that exist in their own bubble. They actually help people build bridges to their broader community. They've identified two different types of social capital: bonding social capital, also known as thick trust, which they liken to super strong glue that holds small groups together. The other type they call bridging social capital, also known as thin trust, which is more like WD-40. It helps different parts of the community slide together and work smoothly. When outdoor education programs are done right, they create both kinds of connections. What I like most about this research is how it challenges traditional outdoor education approaches. Many programs are focused on taking people away from their communities, shipping them off to distant wilderness areas for these intense isolated experiences. The researchers, Beams and Atencio, point out that we might be missing a huge opportunity right in our own backyards. They found that when outdoor education programs are embedded in local communities, think urban nature walks, local conservation projects, or neighbourhood exploration programs, something remarkable happens. These programs create thin trust, Now, this might sound like a bad thing, but it's actually incredibly powerful. It's the kind of trust that helps you feel comfortable interacting with the coffee shop owner down the street or chatting with that neighbour you've seen but never really talked to. Here's an example from the research. In Japan, they studied a program where kids spent time with local elders, learning traditional fishing methods and playing games that had been passed down through generations. This wasn't just about learning outdoor skills. It was about weaving together different parts of the community that might not normally interact, thus developing thin trust, bridging social capital. But here's where it gets really interesting. The researchers found that this approach has ripple effects. When outdoor education programs are connected to the local community, participants don't just learn about nature, they start to understand their role in their community's ecosystem. They begin to see how their actions affect both the natural and social environments around them. The research also challenges us to think about what we mean by community. It's not just about geographical location, it's about creating meaningful connections that last beyond the program itself. When outdoor education is rooted in local contexts, participants can immediately apply what they're learning to benefit their community, rather than trying to figure out how to translate experiences from some distant wilderness back to their daily lives. To use an analogy, think of thick trust as a well-worn hiking trail. It develops over time through repeated interactions and shared experiences. It's the kind of trust you have with close friends, family, or that trail buddy you've been hiking with for years. You develop thick trust when you spend significant time together, share challenging experiences, rely on each other in meaningful ways, build a history of consistent positive interactions. Now, thin trust is different. It's more like stepping onto a new trail for the first time. You trust it's a trail, but you don't have any prior experiences with it. It's the trust we extend to strangers and casual acquaintances in our community. Think about the trust you place in the guide leading a one-time wilderness expedition, a fellow hiker you might meet on the trail who offers you directions, the local outdoor gear shop owner recommending equipment. The research shows that both types of trust are crucial for healthy communities, but they serve different purposes. Thick trust creates strong, reliable bonds. It's what helps outdoor groups function safely and effectively. But thin trust, that's what allows communities to thrive and grow. It's what helps different social groups connect and work together. Reflecting on this research, I definitely think that outdoor education programs have this connotation of developing thick trust. Rock climbing, kayaking, and camping with your mates for a couple of days. But outdoor education has the potential to be so much more. It can develop both types. In order to utilise outdoor education for social cohesion, we need to tailor it to create more of this thin trust throughout the community. We could do this through outdoor programs that involve working with different community members, learning from local experts, or participating in community service projects. I found this to be an interesting point to think about. These relationships that I once thought were shallow and meaningless, all of a sudden have been deemed as important as those I have with my best friends. Having seen this perspective, I get the same stunning feeling I got when thinking about the universal need for connection. This now brings me on to the concluding segment called Wild Whim. It's a chance to take the thoughts from today and put them into practice. For today, I would like to ask you to go out on a wild whim and mindfully build some bridging social capital with someone in your local community. This could be your neighbour or a coffee barista, for example. You could do this by a random act of kindness or showing genuine interest in how their day is going. After you do, notice how you feel, positive or negative. How does it feel to build this trust with someone? Do you feel more intertwined with the community? If you'd like, you can post a response with #WildWhim on Instagram and tag us so we're notified. Alternatively, you could send an email to robbo@wherethere'sawilderness.com and I'd love to read them. Thank you for attending today's campfire. I just want to close on some final thoughts. There was a lot of topics I could have chosen for the first episode, but my mind kept circling back to this idea of community. It's been one of the biggest positive factors in my life. I first found supportive community when I started climbing. I was lucky enough to have some great instructors who helped shape me into the person who I am today. More recently, I found a great community in my master's cohort. Moving to Edinburgh from the south of England has come with its fair share of challenges. I couldn't imagine being part of such an amazing course and cohort of fellow outdoor educators. I would just like to say a massive thank you to these people. I'm so lucky to have met you. Further thanks goes to those who have supported my journey and the launch of the podcast. I've discovered that it takes a lot of time and effort to produce an episode, so thank you very much. I really appreciate it. That officially wraps up the episode, as the last remaining embers of the campfire are extinguished. I'd like to say thank you and hope you have a great day. See you at the next campfire.